guys, and welcome to a little bit of a interlude episode for the Green Malt. This is going to be rather short, but a little bit of a different video because I wanted to talk about something that is not whiskey. Um, the Rodenbach Vintage 2014 bottle that I have here in front of me. It's a beer, so there is malt. We got that going on. But I wanted to talk about it because it's something that I've been drinking quite a bit of since it showed up here in Ontario back in December, I think. And as far as I can tell, their stock is almost depleted at this point, so there's not going to be a lot of time, if you're in Ontario as I am, to get your hands on it. So what is Rodenbach? It's a Belgian brewer, and they do essentially, as far as I'm aware, just the one style of beer, which is a sour beer in the Flemish red ale style. They release it in a couple of different variations. They have the original, which is their youngest release, the Grand Cru, which is an aged version of the original, and they have the Vintage, which is the most aged version of it. They age it for 2 years in big oak vats, so not dissimilar to, in appearance anyway, from what I've seen, a mash tun that you would see in whiskey distillation, so giant oak tubs. But they leave that in there for 2 years to age the beer, and then they pick one of those tuns. Those, they call them foeders. I'm sure I pronounced that horribly, but F-O-E-D-E-R-S. They'll choose one of those and they'll bottle it, and then they'll release it as the vintage release. And unfortunately, I don't think this particular label is going to show up very well on my not so great camera, but you can see somewhere in there. There it is. This says 2014, so this foeder was filled in 2014, picked and bottled in 2016, and then released that year. So 2 years of aging. So what makes them such a unique producer is that style of beer, is that sour ale style, at least for North America. I know that there are other producers of sour beers and other producers of Flemish red ales as well, but I've never come across any that could rival what Rodenbach does. And they've been doing it for a very long time, so unsurprisingly they're damn good at it. The product as it comes out is almost like a wine in the beer world, if that makes any sense. And the reason I say that is because of the tannic acidity that comes out of the aging in the oak. So, I mean, I'll taste it and I'll talk about that a little bit, but not in nearly the same depth that you would a whiskey, of course. But what's so great about this is that it's refreshing, it's tart without being obnoxiously bitter or sour, and there's enough sweetness there to make it light and refreshing and enjoyable to drink. So it's great. I mean, this is why I love it, is that I enjoy drinking it personally on a hot day on a patio. I enjoy drinking it with a steak dinner if you want to. It's got enough body and enough acidic character to cut through the richness of a meal like that. Or hell, if it's like a cold blustery day like today, it's still got enough body to it and enough intensity of flavor to really sort of warm you a little bit. So, what does it taste like? See, the people that know me are probably laughing hysterically that I decided to talk about this beer on video. But to them I say, this is a great beer and it's worth talking about. It's got like a sour cherry note that I think is probably the most recognizable feature of this beer, but not overwhelmingly sour, not overwhelmingly heavily cherried. It's just very subtle, and it's very subtle citrus notes as well. A little bit of a character you might expect from a low IBU, a low bitterness pale ale, perhaps. But unlike a lot of really bitter pale ales, it doesn't really get you on the tongue and the back of the throat and leave itself there for a long time. It doesn't ruin your ability to taste other things, let's say. So yeah, I mean, there's citrus flavors, there's cherry flavors, there's the fruitiness to it. You know, the malty character. You get a little bit of sourness on the end, and a lingering fruit, kind of cherry, but more just like generalized red fruit taste. Anyway, all in all, it's an excellent beer. It's not anything you'll ever find comparable in North America that isn't imported from Europe. There's a few that you'll see that are imported, but it's just due to the way it's made and the variations in the yeast and bacteria strains that they use to ferment the beer. It just doesn't react the same way in North America. And I've asked some craft brewers here in Ontario, you know, why they don't try to make this. And some of them have attempted sour beers, and they come out okay. They do, they're fine, but they're way more sour. They tend to be way more aggressive on the palate. They aren't. I mean, and part of that probably has to do with the aging. No question, that'll mellow it out a little bit. But you know, it's something that I wish we could see more of in this form, in an aged, mellowed version, but I don't know if that's feasible in the marketplace. But until then, check it out. Rodenbach in any of its variations is going to be good, but the vintage, at least the 2014 vintage, because there's a lot of variation to those as well, is definitely worth picking up. It ain't cheap. I think a bottle of this is about $12 for the large bottle, but like I said, I've been drinking a lot of it, so I think it's worth every penny. But to each their own. Anyway, here's thinking and dreaming of warmer weather, and thank you guys. I'll see you next time with what I'm sure will be a whiskey video. Cheers.